Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Bother the Father. I'm Father Schneier with Father Schrader, Father Gerber, and we got an interesting episode today. Maybe one that's a little bit more of a heavier topic as opposed to hunky dory. Yeah, as opposed to Crocs.
Crocs.
We talked about Crocs on the show. That's right. I forgot about that. So, Father, what's kind of the Father Schrader? What's kind of the topic that we're going to cover today?
Yeah. So the gist of the question is, we're in the month of June, and unless you live under a rock, you see that there, in many companies and organizations, there's a celebration of the so-called Pride Month, and the question is, how do I stay true to my Catholic faith and the things that we believe about marriage and human sexuality, while still loving and respecting the person in front of me? Maybe it's a family member, a coworker, someone that's very dear to me. How do I sort of walk that line of respecting them, of still remaining a bridge to the Catholic faith and to compassion, while still honoring what I believe as a Catholic? So that's kind of what we thought we'd talk about, since it's probably on many people's mind, and maybe something that you struggle with as well, to give you some pastoral pointers on how to best handle those moments.
Yeah, I think it's good to just begin like this is just more of a pastoral discussion. I mean, we're not going to cover every single facet of philosophy and theology of marriage, but because a lot of God's precepts that we can talk about, they are enfleshed in people, as I like to say. We can talk about things in theory, but when they come into practice, it's a lot more difficult because, I mean, all of us, have family or friends or people that we know who are members of the the LGBTQ community. At least that's what the letters are nowadays. So yeah, how do we minister? How do we accompany those who are in that circumstance, but while remaining true to what we do believe as Catholics about the nature of marriage and the purpose of our sexuality?
Yeah, I think one thing that often happens is that people get drawn into a debate, and more I've learned that is oftentimes not helpful. So something that I'll ask on heated topics like this, oftentimes from the very beginning, I'll ask the person who's sort of wanting to argue or something like that. I'll say, is there anything, just before we get started, is there anything I could say that's going to change your mind? And what I have found is oftentimes when people are honest, they'll say, no, you really can't. And then I feel like there's a mutual understanding of that maybe it's not helpful for us to argue right now. We can maybe say, this is where I'm coming from, and I'm not trying to change your mind, and you're not trying to change mine. But I find that if we go into it like, I'm going to win this, I'm going to change your mind, it very quickly becomes really kind of ugly, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we want to avoid. Mm-hmm. There's nothing Christian or charitable about having an ugly debate, even if we're standing for the truth. St. Paul would say, if we do not have love, then we have nothing.
Yeah.
So
I remember something that Father Michael Schmidt said. It's very easy for people to think in terms of us and them, but when it comes to the Catholic Church, we're dealing with we. We're together, all of us on this.
Yeah.
And so it's so important to have lines of communication open. And even this, this is, I think, a conversation starter, where we're starting a conversation, which is so important to be able to converse about these things. One of the problems with our culture, I think, is the inability to just have reasonable conversation, where we just kind of come to understand where each person is at.
Yeah. Well, I think the word that gets thrown around a lot is the word tolerance, But if you actually understand what that word means, it's radically different than what society places on it. I think society equates tolerance with everyone agreeing on the same thing, or everyone permitting everything that we do. But the word tolerance, if you actually think about it, it implies a disagreement. It implies that there is discord. When's the last time anybody's tolerated a beautiful sunny day? From a weather standpoint, you tolerate the rain, you tolerate things that you might not like or you might not agree with. And I think if we are to have genuine tolerance, it is recognizing, okay, we do disagree on this, but I'm still going to choose to love you anyway. Again, that says nothing about, tolerance does not mean just, caving on what we believe. No, it implies a disagreement, and it implies standing for something that we do believe and hold dear. But still choosing to love anyway. I think of somebody like Mother Teresa, who would have who very much stood for what the church believed when it came to marriage and sexuality, but also opened the very first AIDS clinic in New York, when the stigma of AIDS in particular was quite strong. That is real tolerance there.
Yeah, and I think too, for us as Catholics to know that loving someone who lives a lifestyle that we cannot sort of endorse, we can love someone in their choices, in their decisions, while still saying I cannot support you in the sense of agreeing with what you're doing or what you're choosing. And I think for our day and age, our society, it's hard. That sort of tension is not accepted. It's either you endorse and accept and celebrate 100%, or you are someone who hates this person. There's no middle ground. But we, all of us, I know, growing up with as kids, we all had that experience of mom and dad saying, I love you, but you cannot do this, or you should not do this. Their no, or their saying, I cannot give you what you want, did not mean they didn't love us. In fact, many times it was the most loving thing. And so for us as Catholics, standing for the truth, the way that God made us, the way He intended us to live our lives and to exercise our sexuality, which is a gift from God, us lovingly proclaiming that and sort of holding the line on that is actually one of the greatest acts of love that we can do for someone, because to say it's okay, do whatever you want, whatever you feel, actually allows that person to go somewhere God didn't
intend.
Intend for us to go. We're not just here for our and others' immediate happiness, although that's what we hope we can help foster, but we're here for eternal happiness and beatitude. So we want to keep that in mind, and just as priests, want to support you in those moments where you feel like, oh boy, this is a tough situation. See it as an act of love and treat that person with love, but that doesn't mean just saying, whatever you do that makes you happy, just do it. That's not really love either.
Yeah. I think it's also worth pointing out that we often talk about mercy towards those who are different than us, or people who are in need of knowing God's love, and that's very true. But it's also not merciful to tell someone that what they're doing is okay when it isn't. I think it was Cardinal Francis George who said it best. It's not merciful to tell people lies in that sense. To tell someone that, what you're doing is okay when it really isn't. That's not mercy. And Christ calls us to love and to will the good for the other, to help one another get to heaven, both for ourselves and for those that we care about.
Yeah, I find it's, it's so important, as we do this, speaking the truth in charity. Fruits of the Holy Spirit include things like gentleness, kindness, in addition to, of course, fidelity. And so, it's, like having a Thanksgiving dinner, it's not like, come over to Thanksgiving dinner, but it's not like, you struggle with this, and so now you're different from us at Thanksgiving dinner. No, I mean, I think there needs to be a sense of outreach and welcoming, but again, like you said, the understanding that we do disagree, and that's okay. And I think that's part of the problem is that the culture, like you said, Father Schrader, like it's no longer about a tolerance sort of thing, like where it's okay that we disagree, but now it's you have to celebrate it. And so we could be like, we're supposed to be very genuine, very gentle, very patient, very kind, and as well holding to the truth, not losing our integrity, and we could be the most generous on this matter, and yet you still might be rejected because you're not celebrating it.
Right.
And so that's a hard thing for many to swallow. That is just the fact that like I'm doing everything I can to show you that I love you, that you're still part of this family, you're still part of the church, but but to say like there's something more that you're called to automatically puts us in a position where, well, we're all called to carry the cross. All of us are.
Yeah.
No matter what we're struggling with, it's always a cross.
And I think that just for me goes back to what I try to ask for clarity when I get into these discussions is, if the only thing that will make you accept me is if I say everything you do is fine, there's no problem morally with anything, then we're probably not going to be able to have a respectful, like mutually agreeable conversation, because the only way I can be worthy in your eyes would be to say I need to leave behind all of my principles and beliefs. So I think, that's the kind of the thing that we have to be aware of. And
Sure.
if someone says, yeah, that's what I'm asking you to do, it doesn't mean we need to be nasty. We don't need to get angry. We can just say, I'm sorry, that's kind of the choice you've given me. I can't do that, and I'll pray for you, and I want you to be happy. I want you to be well, and to be at peace in God's eyes. Those are the things that we should do, even if it's not reciprocated.
Sure. Well, and even just remember that even just our tone and the words that we use, I mean, oftentimes, again, because these relationships are quite deep, whether it's family members, coworkers, or friends, that we are often one of the few links that many people in these communities have to the church. So, just to remember, like, okay, if we truly want what is best for this person, we would want anyone to be a member of the church and living out the gospel values, then it is incumbent upon us to at least keep that link there.
Yes.
We shouldn't just go right into a conversation with no concern about the collateral damage that it would cause, as far as, again, destroying any links back with the church. Because, again, we're called to evangelize. And every single person on this earth is a beloved son and daughter of God by baptism, at least, members of the baptized. And so we ought to have that same concern.
And so maybe just to wrap up, just, practically, you can ask yourself a couple questions. One would be, what I'm about to say, if I know I'm going to see this person at Mass on Sunday, and they're going to sit in the pew next to me, or they're going to be at dinner at the parents' house on Sunday, and they're going to sit right next to me, would I still, knowing I'm going to see them in a few days, would I still say exactly the same thing?
Or say it to their face in that setting.
Yeah. And then that's kind of the second thing is, most often having these conversations behind a screen online leads nowhere good.
Majorly.
There's I just don't hardly see any time where us trying to represent God and represent the truth in on Instagram or Facebook, just very cautious, because people, we all can be very different when we're kind of behind the screen of anonymity and removed from face to face. So try to have these genuine, compassionate conversations with a real person, one-on-one. You're not there to embarrass or to show them up. But anyway, something that we know all of you are experiencing in different ways, and we all have that tension. And please, if you're struggling with how to live your faith or how to represent your faith and still love this person that's so dear to you, you can always come talk to us. That's one of the things.
We're here for you.
Yeah, we do often, and we, as Father Schneider said, often deal with in our own families. So we have a compassionate ear towards that, because we've often gone through it.
Yeah. If I could just add one last thing, our culture so often defines a person by their sexuality. When a person is so much more than that, there's so many dimensions to the human person. And so just we as Catholics, I think we should be very careful not to do the same thing that the culture does. Really look for all the dimensions of the human person that we're speaking to, and what's beautiful about the person. Because it's so easy to hone in on the one thing that is disagreeable, or that we disagree with, or that we find wrong. It's so easy to blow up friendships and families over that one thing, and I don't think it's good that so many people are blowing up relationships.
But always honoring the truth,
Exactly.
because relationships built on on falsehood or lies won't
Exactly,
won't
right,
mean
right.
They aren't
That's
meaningful
right.
relationships.
Yeah,
So
That's right.
Well, anyway, folks, hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you have a question you want to pose to us for Bother the Father, you can go to the Incarnate Word website and submit that little form, and we can answer it in a future episode. Anyway, take care. God bless. See you next time.